Welcome. Thank you for joining us for our weekly object talk. My name is Eliana and I am a member of the learning team at the Jewish Museum. Today, you are joining us for an object talk on a drawing of the story of Abraham and the angels from the Torah by Simeon Solomon. Now, this drawing is from a collection of pen and ink drawings on pages from a sketchbook with captions in the artist's own hand. It was made in 1854. This object is one of over 40,000 objects in the Jewish Museum London designated collection that shows the diversity of Jewish life and history. And our programs exist to explore connections between faiths and cultures. Now I'm going to share my screen so that we can all have a look at the object together. So this drawing is a depiction of the story of Abraham and the angels from the Torah. It was made in 1854 by British Jewish artist Simeon Solomon, whose work shows strong Pre-Raphaelite influence. If we look closely at the object, we can see a pen and ink drawing of Abraham offering food to the angels. Abraham is drawn with his back to us as he offers food to the angels behind the table in the open air. Another angel is standing to the left of the table holding a staff. To the right, we can see Sarah peeping through an opening in a tent. The story that the drawing is based on comes from the Torah, the Jewish Holy Scroll. According to Jewish tradition, Abraham was born under the name Abram in the city of Ur in Babylonia. He was the son of Terach, an idol merchant, but from his early childhood, he questioned the faith of his father. Abraham believed that the entire universe was the work of a single God, and he began to teach his beliefs to others. Abraham tried to convince his father not to worship idols. One day, when Abraham was left alone to mind the store, he took a hammer and smashed all of the idols except for the largest one. He then placed the hammer in the hand of the largest idol. When his father returned and asked what had happened, Abraham said, the idols got into a fight, and the big one smashed all the other ones. And his father said, don't be ridiculous. These idols have no life or power. They can't do anything. So Abraham replied, then why do you worship them? Eventually, the God that Abraham had worshipped called to him and made him an offer. If Abraham left his home and his family, then God would make him a great nation and bless him. Abraham accepted this offer, and the covenant between God and the Jewish people was established. Sarah was the first matriarch or mother of the Jewish nation. She was Abraham's wife and was described as being exceptionally beautiful and remarkably modest. Sarah's original name was Sarai. However, after the covenant, God changed both of their names. Abraham became Abraham and Sarai became Sarah. Abraham and Sarah desperately wanted to have a child, but Sarah was nearly 90 years old. However, God decided to grant them a son. They were visited by 3 men who asked for food and water. The 3 visitors seemed to be ordinary men, but were actually angels who came to deliver God's message that Sarah will get pregnant and have a son named Isaac. The artist Simeon Solomon was inspired by the stories in the Torah, as can be seen in some of his other work. He drew depictions of the meeting of Jacob and Rachel, the story of Noah, and also the relationship between David and Jonathan, such as this one. In fact, an initial principal theme of Pre-Raphaelite art was inspired by religious imagery, and we can see this in Simeon Solomon's work. Simeon Solomon was born in London in 1840 into a wealthy Jewish business family. Two of his older siblings had artistic careers. His brother, Abraham, was a prolific history and genre painter, while his sister, Rebecca, exhibited at the Royal Academy and the Dudley Gallery. In this artistic setting, Simeon Solomon was regarded as a child prodigy, not only by his family, but in the wider Pre-Raphaelite circle to which his brother belonged. Pre-Raphaelite art refers to the body of artwork that was influenced by the principles of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, which formed in 1848. It was formed by a group of English painters, poets, and art critics who opposed the Royal Academy's promotion of the Renaissance master Raphael, which gave him the name Pre-Raphaelite. They also opposed the triviality of the immensely popular genre painting of the time. This was the depiction of everyday life by painting ordinary people. The Pre-Raphaelites were inspired by the stories of John Ruskin, a leading art critic of the Victorian era who urged artists to go to nature and believed in an art of serious subjects treated with maximum realism. Their principal themes were initially religious, but they also used subjects from literature and poetry, particularly those dealing with love and death. They also explored modern social problems. After initial heavy opposition to the Pre-Raphaelites became highly influential, with the second phase of the movement from about 1860. Simeon Solomon's many works were exhibited throughout the 1860s and early 1870s. He was at the forefront of the new aesthetic painting, tending to employ unusual colour harmonies and odd compositional effects as well, to emphasise intense emotion. However, at the very height of his success, in February 1873, Solomon was convicted of homosexual offences, and although he was let off lightly, his career was ruined by the incident. His career over, he began a precarious existence on the fringes of society. Subsequent criminal activity, his destitution drove him to burglary, for example, only increased his scandalous reputation. He continued to paint after his arrest, but later works are most often pencil or crayon drawings, typically representing intensified heads, sometimes incorporating quotations from poetry or the Bible, again continuing the religious influence from the Pre-Raphaelites. Although his death in the St. Giles Workhouse in 1905 was followed by a gradual increase in attention to his work. Subsequently, he had gained a place in the history of Victorian art as a gifted and highly original artist. Furthermore, in recent years, there's been a resurgence in interest in his work with the emergence of gender, gay, and queer studies. Several of his images featured in the first scene-setting room at Tate Britain's 2016 exhibition, Queer British Art, 1861 to 1967. Now, this drawing highlights the inspiration that comes from the stories in the sacred texts of the Torah and the rest of the Hebrew Bible. Many artists depict them in artwork. These stories capture hearts and minds and really speak to people, whether people read them as religious or not. It reminds me of the ways stories can capture the imagination, whether people use them for escapism or to help them live in the world or to learn from them. Do you have a favourite childhood story, or a story from the Torah or the Bible? Something that's always captured your imagination, heart and mind? Mine is Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. And that brings me to the end of my object talk. Thank you for joining me today. Please do join us next week, where we will be exploring an object based on the theme of nature and gardens. Thank you. Goodbye.